Welcome to the Reviews Without Remorse podcast with Joe and Dave. Be warned, the discussions in this podcast may contain detailed spoilers. For spoiler-free reviews of newly released films, be sure to check out our show on our YouTube channel. Enter at your own risk and enjoy the show.
I foresee two possibilities. One, following up a tremendously successful and popular movie could put moviegoers into a state of frenzy and simply drive up box office returns. Or two, the sequel could create a cinematic paradox, the result of which could cause a chain reaction that would unravel the very fabric of the trilogy and destroy the goodwill the first movie gave. Granted, that's a worst-case scenario, where destruction might in fact be very localized, limited to merely film reviewers. I am the eccentric master of time and space. David is my normal name. And with me is my skateboarding, guitar-playing partner in Paradox, Joe.
Props on that opening and getting through it without flubbing. That was spectacular.
Thanks. I swear to you, I wasn't even practicing. This is episode 169. And in this show, we will discuss Tom Tiny Lister has died. The hulking star of over 200 movies and the former president of the galaxy leaves wonderful legacy behind him. Joe and I pay tribute. Disney had a slew of Marvel and Star Wars announcements, so many that we had to break up the news into 2 weeks. This week, we cover all the Star Wars announcements. And then, we take another trip into the past as we continue our film series and review Back to the Future 2. Hey, Joe.
Oh, what's happening, partner?
Oh, so much, but nothing having to do with movies. Doing good. Hope Snowmageddon isn't driving you up a wall.
So far, so good. So far, I'd say we got about an inch or two on the ground, and I already hear the plows because it's the first big snowstorm. So the first one they're going to knock out. It's only after a month or two of this that they start to slack off. But so far, so good. So, but I'm anxious to talk about movies.
Yes, I don't blame you, sir. So let's get to it.
No, I tried. No, man.
Who's that?
Some woman claims to be Corbin's mother.
Well, give it here. Mrs. Dallas, this is the president. On behalf of the Federation, I would like to thank you.
Oh, please, that doesn't even sound like him. The president's an idiot, and you don't sound like an idiot. If you don't want to talk to your mother, just avoid me like usual, huh? I'll just throw myself in traffic. I'll just surround.
Born June 24th, 1958, in Compton, California. 6'5", Tom Tiny Lister starred in over 200 movies. Some of his best-known movies would be Friday, Little Nicky, The Fifth Element, The Dark Knight, just, to name a few. You cannot forget this guy's face. When you see him, he's this big, hulking, bald-headed guy. He had that one little eye that was askew, and he always looked like he would knock you on your ass by sneezing. Always. We of course can't forget like his first, big runaway hit as, the antagonist to the immortal Hulk Hogan in the legendary No Holds Bar.
Okay.
But for me, what will always remain with me, and listen, a big movie that I enjoyed him in as well was The Fifth Element. It's a guilty pleasure of mine. Him as the president of the galaxy. Thought he was wonderful, personable. But to me, the standout will always be The Dark Knight.
Give it to me. You can tell him I took it by force. Give it to me. And I'll do what you should have did 10 minutes ago.
The man was in the movie like 5 minutes, giving that incredible little speech. Give it to me, and I'll show you what you should have done 10 minutes ago.
Yeah.
God!
I'm with you, boy. That was I'll say this. When we were first talking about him, I immediately went to The Fifth Element because I kind of felt like that was the one that I just got the best impression from him, where he, was kind of little more on screen, up front, etc. And I just always thought he was great in that. It wasn't until you reminded me The Dark Knight, I went, oh yeah, he was that guy. So I was a little, I was a little behind there. But once you said, I was like, oh my God, yes, that's absolutely true, and what a great role for him.
Yeah, an iconic scene. Anyway, he's immortalized. He died December 10th, 2020, at the age of 62. From what I understand, complications of COVID. Yay, world. Just wanted to say farewell, my man. You were always a sight to see. And not just because you were 6 foot and intimidating, but because, man, you just came across really cool sometimes. And I'll never forget you for what you did in The Dark Knight.
This is the way.
This is the way. This is the way.
My first question is this. Did The Mandalorian start the Lucasfilm television universe?
I would say emphatically yes. I kind of felt that as I watched the announcements of all the new projects, and I won't say too much. I want to let you jump in with this, but my instant feeling was that, wow, they went from not long after, I guess it was The Rise of Skywalker, so we're talking about in the last year or two, the execs over there saying, yeah, maybe we oversaturated the market. Yeah, maybe we were doing too much too soon. Maybe film a year is too much. And instantly, The Mandalorian takes off, and they do a complete 180. And they peppered us with these new projects. So, yes, my answer is yes. I think The Mandalorian completely changed their tune.
I would say so. What was announced, and there was a lot announced. I mean, they haven't really shown off everything. They've just given titles. But it just goes to show you that, hey, I guess you can't have too much Star Wars. Like you said, maybe it's a matter of, I guess you can't have too much bad Star Wars. But that's not to say they could screw this up. They could absolutely positively screw this up. The projects are Star Wars Rangers of the New Republic, which could technically it could wind up being a spin-off with Gina Carano's character of Cara Dune. So, because it is the New Republic, it does take place, around the same time as The Mandalorian. Then you have Star Wars The Acolyte, which is being touted as a mystery thriller series during the High Republic era. I mean, I'm not 100% sure about that, but, okay. You have the Cassian Andor series. You remember Cassian Andor from Rogue Squadron?
Sure, Rogue One.
Right. Yep, Diego Luna, he's back. They're filming it right now. You've got The Bad Batch. The Bad Batch is, okay, so they introduced these characters in the last season of Star Wars, The Clone Wars. Basically, it is a group of clone troopers who, for various reasons, didn't clone correctly, but still, had 2 arms and 2 legs. So they became like a special forces unit. Okay. Hence why they're called the Bad Batch. And it's going to be an animated series that follows them around. Yay. Okay. Next you have Star Wars Visions, which we know nothing about. Then you have Willow, which isn't Star Wars, but it is Lucasfilm. You've got Patty Jenkins directing a Rogue Squadron movie, which I gotta admit, I'm kind of curious and a little excited about. But probably the thing that has me most excited has to be the Ahsoka Tano TV series with Rosario Dawson. I am very happy about that show. That's probably my favorite announcement out of all of them. Oh, which brings me to my least favorite announcement, Indiana Jones 5.
Yeah, I guess that qualifies too. That is Lucasfilm. And it's so funny. I mean, there's still other things on here that you haven't even mentioned. A droid story.
Yeah.
Lando, which I think has potential, but that makes me a little nervous. But then the Obi-Wan Kenobi finally, which people have been talking about for years. So I guess we're finally going to get that as a TV show. So I guess 90% of what was announced is all for TV, and only Rogue Squadron is a movie.
That's what it seems to be right now.
Yeah.
All the stuff seems to be TV shows, and I apologize for missing Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan was like known beforehand, so I was trying to hit on the stuff
Right,
that we didn't know about. And
Sure.
Lando, I had actually heard rumors about for a while, and they actually have Donald Glover supposedly coming back to play young Lando. So
I tell you what, if they don't, as soon as I saw Lando, I said to myself, okay, it's going to be Glover playing Lando, and I'm sure they're going to get Billy Dee to do like voiceover and sort of talk about it in the past tense. If I had to guess.
I think I would enjoy that.
Yeah. Yeah. I and like I said, I'm sort of stunned by this because I'm looking at this and saying that's a lot of stuff. I don't know. I mean, literally, including The Mandalorian, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 shows. I mean, they have one series right now that works. And I know it's going to be a mixture of animated shows as well as live action shows. I guess I know the Bad Batch is animated.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if any others are. But yeah, there's part of me is like that's a lot to swallow, and I kind of feel like, I mean, seriously, I've said we've been talking about Mandalorian, and we will talk about it again once the season is over. We'll do a recap.
Which is this Friday.
Is that, yeah, boy, that went fast. Honestly, I've been raving about this show, saying that it's rescued Star Wars, and frankly, if this was the only Star Wars I ever got, just keep it coming. I love it. And then I see this, and I'm like, boy, careful what you wish for. And I'm just kind of nervous because, I mean, you got what? I mean, you did 3 films which were garbage. Solo was okay, and I still say Rogue One was a damn good movie.
Yes, it was.
But honestly, it was only The Mandalorian that really gave me the vibe, like, okay, Star Wars is back. So, and they went from one good show to 10. So I'm starting to feel like maybe these folks, again, talk about learning wrong lessons. Maybe they got a little confident, a little too quick, and now they're going to shoot for the bleachers. Fingers crossed, but I'm nervous.
Do you remember the future?
You've got to come back with me.
Where?
Back to the future.
Are we back?
We're back.
What do you mean we're in the future?
October 21st, 2015.
Marty, we're going to be able to see our wedding.
Wow. The future. I gotta check this out, Doc.
After visiting 2015, Marty McFly must repeat his visit to 1955 to prevent disastrous changes to 1985 without interfering with his first trip. Just saying that alone is a mouthful. Written by Bob Gale, story by Robert Zemeckis and Bob Gale, directed by Robert Zemeckis, Back to the Future 2. The first one ended with something's got to be done about your kids, and left you with a sense of wonder and imagination. You know, I don't know who it was who said it, but there was somebody once said that sometimes you don't need to see what's behind the door to know if it was good or not. The entire opening of this movie seemed very, very impressed with itself, with its ideas of what the future was going to be. And had a couple of clever moments, but it started feeling like this movie, you know, not just even later in the movie, like later in the movie when they're in 1955. And yes, I'm going right into spoilers, ladies and gentlemen. It is a 30-year-old movie. Seriously, if you're listening to this show and you haven't seen this movie, seriously, it's more so. It's more showing in 1955 as much because basically they're aping a lot of the first movie, and it's almost like this weird way of doing it. So it's like, oh, we've made a sequel that's like the first one, but mostly because we're kind of like interwoven with the first one. And yet they had this entire opening where they aped the entire original chase around the center of Hill Valley and everything like that.
Yeah.
And as I was watching this again, here's the initial impressions I had as I was watching it again. Okay. Truly state-of-the-art cinematography in the split screens with the multiple, versions of Michael J. Fox and everything like that, and even to a lesser extent of Thomas F. Wilson whenever he was around himself. Truly good, amazing stuff. It's one of the first movies to do digital wire removal, and it did it very, very impressively. But on the whole, as a continuation of the first perfect movie, I still found it to be meh.
Yeah. Yes, it is. It's very much meh. It's definitely a very middling follow-up. It's a fun watch. I mean, I can sort of remember the first time I saw it, and watching it again for this. Yeah, it does feel. It's frustrating because it kind of feels like it's there for no other purpose than, the first one was so good. This was such a good movie. We need more, and it is more. But that's kind of all it is. And because it's not so much a movie that stands on its own 2 feet. It really is just sort of a 2-hour homage to everything that is Back to the Future. Honestly, I don't think there was a single joke from the first one that wasn't redone in this one that was kind of like, again, paying homage to the first one. So now it's borderline fourth wall breaking. It's totally meta. We're not creating something new. We're just. It almost feels like the Star Wars Christmas holiday special, where it's just this weird homage to what happened before. It's not something that's on its own. I mean, this thing really does feel like an asterisk in the. I mean, frankly, when this movie was not referring back to the first one, all it was doing was being a coming attraction for the third one.
Yeah,
it feels very much like a stepping point between 1 and 3, and on its own isn't very much. Like you said, I mean, they do the opening of this film is basically a rehash of the scene from the first one, the skateboard scene in the center of town. It was that all over again. And honestly, of course it's all, even when they go to the future, and again, you sort of mentioned, we mentioned this last time, and you just sort of touched on it again. What was a minor little joke at the end of the first one now blows up to a full-blown scene in this film, and it's really, again, is this sort of like a realistic look at the future, or is it kind of a wink, funny? It's almost like the film, it's bordering on parody at some point. You know what I mean? Like the first one felt like a pretty earnest look at what it would be like to go into the past, etc. I mean, it was fairly authentic. It was pretty grounded. The only conceit you had to really swallow in the first one was the idea that time travel exists. Once you got that, everything else that happened in the story was working perfectly fine as its own story. This one is, we're exploring now full-blown science fiction. We're looking into the future. And of course, I'm trying not to look at it with, 2020 lenses, where we're kind of looking back saying like, yeah, you guys were pretty off with all your predictions.
It's just a tad.
Just a tad. But yeah, I mean, seriously, the scene on the hoverboard, probably the best scene of the film, frankly.
Hey, stop! Little girl, stop! Look, I need to borrow your hoverboard. Where is he? Here. There! He's on a hoverboard! Get the board!
Give me one!
Get him!
Yeah, we got him!
Something very familiar about all this.
I kind of felt like that was the only kind of action set piece in the film, really. I mean, after that, then we're just kind of going back and forth, doing stuff, talking about this and that. The whole thing with Biff, with the casino and the mother, and again, doing literally every single gag from the first one all over again. But yeah, I mean, once he goes back to 1955 again, it just had a real weird feel to it. Again, totally meta and fourth wall breaking, where we're spending just all that time admiring the first movie. Like every single moment was just following the tracks of the first film. Oh, look, he's over here, so in the background he can see what's going on over there from the first movie. The movie really, I mean, I can't really compare it to anything because it's sort of a weird animal in this respect, but it really can't. I mean, it can't at all stand on its own 2 feet, for one thing.
No.
And it's not, but what's weird is that it's not even really trying. It literally is sort of posing itself as an homage to everything that the first film was. It's not until we get to the third one that they sort of get back into doing a self-contained story. This one, yeah, it's like a weird tribute. So I kind of feel like I guess it's entertaining in its own right, I suppose, but I can't even judge it as a whole story.
Well, because the story is a giant ripoff of itself, which is impressive if you think about it.
Right. Yeah.
When you wind up ripping off your own story, that's an impressive thing to do. I mean, some of it was clever. I mean, I thought that the way that they first of all, they had to reshoot the opening because they couldn't even get the same actress to play Jennifer. They had to go for a whole new actress, Elizabeth Shue this time. So they had to reshoot that, and that that's a weird, jarring thing to happen because there's like 2 differences between the end of the last film and the start of this film. Number one is the fact that Jennifer is different. Elizabeth Shue's a beautiful woman. Don't get me wrong, but like I kind of thought the original Jennifer was prettier to start with.
Isn't that
good?
Yeah, isn't that weird? Isn't that funny? I had the same vibe. I didn't understand. I don't know what the deal was. Was she just not available or whatever? But I had that same vibe when I thought pulling in Elizabeth Shue to play this part. I kind of thought it was really weird because and Elizabeth Shue's she's very pretty, but when they put the brown wig on her and stuff, it was kind of like, huh? It didn't really work, and it made it feel like they were trying something different with this character, like she was going to get more to do, but not much really. So yeah, I think that was a weird move.
Yeah, not to mention the fact I found the original Jennifer to be at one point at the beginning, she's going, "Oh, Marty, we're gonna get to see our future," and it's like it was the most excitement I've seen from the Jennifer character at this point. The original Jennifer actress played her as very calm, very to the point, like still loving and still truly crazy about Marty and everything like that. But Elizabeth Shue kind of plays it almost like cheerleader-ish, and that kind of that kind of shook me for a minute. And the other major difference, especially when you watch them back to back, the other major difference is if you remember, Marty at one point says, what happens to us in the future? Do we become assholes? And if you in the original, Doc immediately answers, no, you and Jennifer are fine. But in this new one, he like stops for a minute, looks up thoughtful, and then looks down at them like, no, you and Jennifer are fine. And it's like, okay,
Yeah. I mean, all of that stuff ends up being kind of weird. The them redoing all the scenes, it was sort of bizarre. It's funny because I've seen like on YouTube, there's something like back to back where they kind of do like a little side by sides. Here's how it was in the first one, and here's how it looked when they redid it in the second one. And it's a weird exercise. Like, what was the point of doing that? I mean, they really did. I mean, I guess you had to because they put Jennifer Shue in but they did that. They redo the whole opening, and yeah, I don't get it. I mean, that's kind of what this whole movie is like. It's almost George Lucas-y in terms of a lot of it feels just like experiments with what we can do technically. Like there's no story happening, but it's like, hey, let's see if we can recreate that scene. You know
what? Exactly right. This feels more like a technical exercise than an actual attempt to continue the story. It feels to me like they just wanted to get, like you said in the beginning, they just wanted to get to 1885. That was the destination.
Yeah.
And
right.
For the first problem they had to deal with, oh shoot, well, we thought this was going to be funny and there wouldn't be a sequel. So we brought Jennifer along, and now we have to somehow get Jennifer involved with it, but not get her involved with it. So they knock her out in the first 5 minutes of the movie, and then put her on a damn porch. In what wound up being the hood. I don't even want to think about the implication of that, or the fact that the entire hood got overwritten, but somehow she stayed the same. I mean, now you're really getting into some minutiae of the time travel experience going on here. Then you go to the future and you show off this crazy, this is like the future imagined, with a tiny little bit of futurism mixed with 50s style view of what the future was going to be, which I guess might have been on purpose. Considering, the 50s and 80s, difference between the original movie, I don't know. But even looking at all the people and the clothes and stuff like that, and I just thought to myself, I don't know, man. It's like 85 to 2015, 30 years. That's a long time. And I was really hoping for the flying cars. Don't get me wrong, but that's obviously never going to happen by this point. But like the whole outfits and stuff like that just never really rang true to me. Like when I'm watching Blade Runner, when I was watching even Blade Runner, which took place in the faraway future of 2019. God. There was some, weird looking clothes and stuff like that, but nothing really too out of the ordinary. And frankly, I've actually seen people walking around in clothing like that. So I don't know if it's influence or whatever, but yeah, it went almost a little too silly with the future, and that kind of took me out of it a little bit. And then when they go back into the past, and it's like that Monty Python skit where there's like wink, wink, nudge, nudge, say no more, say no more. The entire thing is like that little skit where and there's no real. And the thing is that the first movie there was a deadline. There was your future's about to get overwritten. You are going to disappear. Okay, there was no clock. There was no sense of urgency or dread. In the third one, they managed to do that, but we'll get to that when we get to the third one. But this whole thing, like time was running out, never really made sense to me. It didn't feel like that there was an absolute positive, or anything along those lines. And even if Biff, they couldn't get the book from Biff today, why couldn't they get it tomorrow? Why couldn't they get it the next day? They came from the future. Why can't they shoot a freaking tranquilizer dart from him from like 5,000 billion feet away or something like that? He's got all this technology.
Why can't you go back a day early? Go back a day early, and that way you can be there when he shows up, the old man, and just grab him. You're absolutely right. I mean,
they kind of explain that because the timeline that, oh God, I hate that I have to actually explain this, but the way it works is, think of Doc and Marty. They are their own timeline. They're their own string. Okay, and their string can go around and weave around and interact and so on and so forth. But in their string, old Biff went back in time and old Biff returned to the future. They can't interfere with that. That has to happen. If they stop Biff, they just can't send him back into the future like that. That would cause ripples in their timeline. Getting a headache yet? Quick, Austin Powers. Oh no, I've gone cross-eyed thing.
I tell you honestly, but it's funny because these are the conversations that, like I said last time, that like we would go to see these movies, and my brothers would be out, for the next hour or two talking about the intricacies of time travel. I don't know if I'm buying that, because honestly, Biff went back in time. Right, and basically he caused an event which changed the present that Doc and Marty were in. Meaning, like, again,
they were in 2015 when that happened. Yes, go on.
Well, right, they were in 2015, so they went back to 85, which now was completely ruined. So basically, I mean, if they went back in time and they went back just a little further than Biff arriving in 1955, and they just took the book and said, nope, you can't do this, and we're bringing you back and dropping you off. Wouldn't then they just go back to the normal 85?
I'll do you one better. I'll do you one better. Why not go back to the moment that Marty purchases the book and have Doc come, not Marty, but Doc come up to him and be like, Marty, give me that fucking book.
This is turning into. This is turning into Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, where, all right, we got to make sure we come back and leave this here, because later on we'll come back and we'll hide a key over here.
And don't forget a tape recorder over there, and type this message. Good luck, dudes.
All right.
Totally. If you go by that logic, then yeah, they could have done it even easier. I mean, but then they were like, no, we can't because the past has changed. But then they kind of contradict themselves, because if the past has changed so much that they can't go back to the future of 2015, how did Biff get back to that future?
Well, this is the thing. Well, I think technically, when Biff got back to his future should have been very different.
Exactly.
Right. Here's the thing. Honestly, see, I'm sort of feeling like, my idea of going back and grabbing Biff before he hands off the book, that's kind of the only way you could have done it, because the way they did it is they actually go back and take the book from the Biff who already knows about the existence of the book, who already knows about the existence of time travel. So you really have to go back further to undo that damage. That, like, if Biff of 1955 knows these things, he's been visited by his future self. So I think I think letting that exist is you can't do that, really. But
yeah, not to mention the fact, 5 seconds into the start of the movie, Doc zaps Jennifer, knocks her out, and she won't remember a thing. Hello.
Yeah, right.
McFly! Hello!
Yeah. Right. I mean, yeah, that's right. This is the thing. I mean, they wrote themselves, just that little ending in the first movie wrote them into such a corner. Because, I mean, you have to figure, this was the Doc. The Doc of 1985 is the guy who said, well, I figured, what the hell? He went from worrying about the space-time continuum in 1955 to aging and maturing a little bit and kind of figuring, you know what, who cares? So I guess the idea is that is the Doc who says, oh, bring her along, this affects her too. But then when the second film starts, well, we kind of need uptight Doc again to deliver our dialogue and to make things happen the way they should happen, etc. So, yeah, it is weird.
Look what happens to your son.
He's a complete wimp.
Don't talk to anyone. You've been looking, Bob!
Hey, look!
Don't touch anything.
I need to borrow your hoverboard.
And try not to look at anything. I didn't invent the time machine to win at gambling.
I can't lose.
I invented the time machine to travel through time.
Hey, Doc, I'm all for that. What's wrong with making a few bucks on the side?
The bottom line is that I don't find. Yeah, I think we kind of summed it up when we said that. Again, this whole film feels just like a technical exercise. I mean, honestly, there really is like the whole genius of the original film, as we said last week. It is the heart and soul story. It is Marty meeting his parents and trying to get them to fall in love, etc. That's the story. You know, the time travel was just a vehicle to get us there. This movie is about time travel, and that's it. It is literally just a movie about time travel, to talk about time travel, to talk about it is essentially a science fiction film from beginning to end, really, as opposed to the first one had the essence of science fiction to sort of bookend the story we wanted to tell. This movie is a full-blown science fiction time travel story and not much else.
Yeah, and the movie suffers for it. And to be perfectly honest with you, I remember walking out of this movie, and seeing that little preview at the end for Back to the Future 3, feeling like, okay.
I tell you what, I'm with you there. It's once they, in fact, I was actually sort of surprised when I watched the film yesterday, preparing for us talking about it. Wow, I guess it's the first time I actually sat down and watched the film since I saw it in the theater. Mm-hmm. And when that coming attraction played at the end of what I was watching, I was like, I was surprised, because I remember the first movie ending saying to be concluded, and they showed this big coming attraction, this commercial for the third one. And I thought, that's really weird. I thought for sure once this thing hit DVD, they would have trimmed that out and just ended the film where it ended, because, again, it just felt like a weird coming attraction. But nope, there it was. Here I am watching it at home, and that all those clips from the third movie started playing. And I was like, wow, that's really weird. And it really does sort of cheapen this movie. It makes it feel like, again, just a 2-hour commercial for the next one.
Yeah, it does. The whole movie really is almost pointless. A part of me almost feels like they could have just gone straight to the third movie somehow and just kind of explained away the events of, saving their kids and stuff like that or whatever. I kind of feel like there's a lot of weird choices. Now, from what I understand, even like Zemeckis and Gale were annoyed that they had to open up the movie, with Jennifer still in the car. But they had no choice. That's the way they wrote it. And Gale did most of the writing for this one because at the time Zemeckis was making Who Framed Roger Rabbit. I don't know. I don't know if it makes a difference. I can't say that I have like all faith in Zemeckis. From Zemeckis, I like Zemeckis as a director, but he can be a bit uneven at times.
Sure.
And this is like a really uneven movie. It really is. It really is just trying to get from A to Z, and it maybe cares about the letters D, the letters L, and the letter T. But it really didn't care about the rest of the letters in the alphabet, as long as it got to Z. And is
there a reason why we picked DLT? Am I missing the?
Well, we chose DL because I am a narcissistic son of a gun. And the T, I don't know why Mr. T. I chose T for Mr. T, okay? There it is.
I thought maybe there was a joke about DLT that I was not getting, but okay, I got you now. Okay. Well, we picked out certain letters to focus on and not the bigger picture. I get
it. Exactly. Yeah. Now, granted, things that work. Christopher Lloyd and Michael J. Fox still work so damn well together.
Sure.
I will never, ever take it away from that. A lot of the visual effects hold up. Not all of them, but a lot of them. but less so than from the first one. Like the scene where the car is kind of flying around in the storm just was not good.
Right.
You know, and that was not good, to say the least. The cast was fine. The future was just, it honestly wasn't. It's like they were trying to be funny, you know, because Doc came out of the car with those weird clothes. Marty, you're gonna come back with me, and everything like that. But I didn't find it amusing at all. And maybe it's just because now it's 2000 and now it's 2020. and maybe it's just, but even when I was watching it beforehand, like when I first showed it to Liam, and Liam loves this trilogy, and you know, here's the funny part, that even besides all the things that failed, I oddly wasn't bored. Like, I kind of still, I mean, yeah, it was the first movie that was meta for meta's sake, and I'm sure that's, you know, all fine and dandy, but I wasn't like terribly bored. It was almost like almost like an episode of Mystery Science Theater 3000, you know, where they're sitting, they're sitting there like in the front row watching Back to the Future and kind of commenting and walking around on it. So I don't hate this movie. I'm just really puzzled by it, and I can't quite get. I mean, maybe once we rewatch the third one, we'll have a better idea. But I can't quite get where they were going, what they were really trying to do, other than, hey, let's be cute and so on and so forth, and hey, wasn't this a great scene from this movie and everything like that. Nothing else makes sense because the story just isn't there as much as it was in the first one. There's no sense of urgency, nothing.
Yeah. No, yeah, listen, you're 1,000% correct. Honestly, I mean, even I remember the first time I saw this in the theater, even like, again, all this stuff when they go into the future, like you said, it's not that far into the future. I mean, we've already passed it, for God's sakes. And I remember even as I was watching it, there was some things that I thought were clever, but a lot of it I just thought was, again, more satire than a realistic interpretation, the vision of the future. I think, I mean, seriously, ironically, they go into the cafe 80s, right? Now, we're living in 2020 where 80s nostalgia rules the day. You know, I mean, most of the shows we've been watching, most of the movies that are coming out, I mean, the 80s nostalgia is in high gear. So, and ironically, this was sort of what the cafe 80s was in the future of this film. But it felt, even when we saw it, I felt like it felt like again, it's not really trying to be real. It's trying to be funny, and it's like the dueling Ronald Reagan on the screen talking to the Ayatollah, and they're talking in this glitchy animation that was popular because of Max Headroom. So again, it was more like this sort of like goofy 80s. I mean, they got people riding the bike. Like, why are people exercising on exercise bikes in the 80s cafe? Like, I mean, do they not have gyms? Is fitness something that we don't have in the future? So it's like nostalgia. I don't get it. So I mean, it's just stuff like that. You know, it just. And by the way, he has to go over to the Wild West video game, which again, another homage to what's coming. Just like Biff is watching the Clint Eastwood movie, which is obviously foreshadowing to the next movie. So I mean, the whole thing. The whole thing is very weird. It's very functional. It's we already said it's a technical exercise. It doesn't feel like much at all. It really is, honestly. If you're a fan of the film, of the first one, this, like I said, it doesn't feel like more. And honestly, by the way, the fact that they do, and I kind of feel like it's kind of fair game to talk about where they go in the third one, because there's so much foreshadowing here. We even get a full-blown commercial for it at the end. Honestly, I kind of felt like when you see where they're going in the third one, it made you sort of say to yourself, well, why didn't we do more? I mean, honestly, if we're just going to do a full-blown time travel movie, we could have gone all over the place. We could have gone to the future. We could have gone to multiple time periods. We could have done all kinds of things. We just sort of do this where it's this weird, funky homage to the first film. So we have to do this a little bit in the future. Then we're back in 55. And then later we're going to do a full-blown Wild West movie. So if Wild West is fair game, why didn't we do more with this? Why didn't we kind of talk more about? Again, we could have gone and saw dinosaurs in this movie had we wanted to. So, yeah, I don't know. I kind of felt like there was, again, so busy patting itself on the back for the first one that they really missed any opportunity to do anything new and creative and unique with this one.
Now, the time continuum has been disrupted, creating an alternate 1985.
There have been a few changes.
It's like we're in hell or something.
No, it's Hill Valley, although I can't imagine hell being much worse.
But they'll all be back.
Eat less, slackers!
Biff?
Hello? Hello? Anybody home?
Mom, that can't be you. You're so big.
I kind of feel like that's as good a place as any to ask, how much of a score do you have, sir?
I'll tell you this. I think we started this by saying this was a middling effort, so I think that's where I'm going to stay. I think I'm going to give it a 5. Again, it is. I mean, technically, it is an interesting movie. I can't call it boring. I can't call it lacking in ambition. I mean, they definitely did what they wanted to, and they dialed it up to 11 in a lot of areas. So it's certainly ambitious. So yeah, I think a 5 is fair for this one. It's watchable.
And that's all you have to say about that?
That's all I got to say about that.
There's a meta right there. Hey, there's your meta, Robert Zemeckis, because you would later go on to direct Forrest Gump, where he would say, and that's all I have to say about that.
Yeah.
I gave it a 6. And I gave it the extra point because regardless of its middling qualities, and it's truly the Jan of the series.
It's a good way to put it.
But I still found myself enthralled by what we take for granted today that this movie did first. All the shots of a moving camera with an actor playing 2 different parts, that all started here. This was the first movie to do it. In the old days, when you had split screens, you'd always have this thing where they'd be kind of like, it would be a 2-shot of them facing each other, and there'd always be this like line right down the center of some sort in between them. So, that's where you knew they kind of spliced the films together. Like we've been rewatching Charlie's Angels. Liam got into Charlie's Angels. So we've been rewatching the old Charlie's Angels series. And there was this one episode with Sammy Davis Jr., where there was a Sammy Davis Jr. look-alike. And when the two of them interacted together, I was just laughing my damn head off. So watching this and seeing, Michael J. Fox pass Michael J. Fox a slice of pizza, that was kind of neat and different and new for the time. Technologically speaking, I'm giving this movie an extra 1 point just for that, because it advanced filmmaking in a way.
Yeah.
So always give it credit for that. And, like I said, you can't really take it away from Christopher Lloyd and Michael J. Fox. They bring their game. It's just, the writers that didn't bring their game. So 6 from me.
Agreed. Well said.
And as for Who Asked You, oh, Jesus. I'm sorry to say it, but I'm throwing it at Elizabeth Shue. She was not a good choice to replace Claudia Wells, who was the original Jennifer. Her little cheerleader-esque excitement over seeing their kids, it felt so damn hollow. I didn't buy it from the character. And I'm kind of like, I know you wanted to make it your own thing. I don't think that was a good choice. And then on top of that, she becomes a footnote through the entire 2 movies. She's hey, look, we got this other actress who was in Karate Kid. Oh, but that's all you see of her. Goodbye. So she became a footnote in the movie. It was almost like, why even bother? So I feel they could have done better. She's a fine actress. She absolutely is a fine actress and a beautiful woman, but I feel like her performance was lacking. So if we would have done anything, I would have cast differently.
Yeah. Well, I will say this in her defense. First of all, I agree with you 1,000%. I think she was the wrong choice. I think, honestly, I feel like, I suppose if Robert Zemeckis comes calling, you don't say no, especially for a film that was as popular as The Back to the Future. But Elizabeth Shue was bigger of an actress than this. And I'm sure they probably said, well, no, we're going to pump her character up a little bit. She's going to have more to do in this. So I'm with you. You know what they should have got? They should have grabbed Sloane from Ferris Bueller. I think she probably would have been pretty spot on for this one.
Yeah. That's that would be a great casting. Mia Sarah. I always liked her.
Yeah. But there you go. I agree with you, and I think that they did misfire, and she's not right for this. I think she did fine with what they gave her, but they didn't give her much. With that in mind, they should have got somebody that you're not noticing as much. And I'm curious to know why they couldn't get the first girl again. Like how busy could she have been to not do this film?
She left Hollywood for a little while, actually. No reason.
Right?
Yeah, no reason given. She just left Hollywood for a little while.
It was kind of a little silly on our part, if you ask me. But anyway, that's not why we're here. I'm trying to put my finger on how to say this, because I feel like the whole film is a little bit of a swing and a miss. But I kind of feel like the Biff character, I kind of felt like they're kind of doing him not quite right either. Honestly, they once they go from the first film to the second film, pretty much everyone in here is caricature. And I kind of felt like, you're really, really taking this Biff character and escalating him to this supervillain character. And I kind of feel like, I don't know, I kind of feel like you're taking this goober bully character a little too seriously. I mean, it's funny how he went from becoming a bully. He went from being a bully into a nerd at the end of the last movie. And then as soon as you saw the DeLorean take off in the opening of the second one, he switched right back into being an asshole from being a nerd. I don't really know why that is, but I kind of want to give it to that. But I got one more thing that kind of bugs me a little bit more.
The plethora of choices. Please continue.
How about the miscasting or non-recasting of Crispin Glover and getting this kind of weird sort of George McFly in the second one?
I gotta admit, that was kind of a weird one, and he wound up having to sue them too, because for royalties for the little that they did use his face. Did you know that?
I didn't actually, but I guess he was technically in this movie. They were showing clips from the first one. Yeah, kind of weird stuff. I don't know how that all works, but yeah, what a weird one. And geez, how weird do you have to be to not get invited back for the second movie, especially when you're a major part of that first one?
I think he got invited back. He just, he just was like wanting more or something like that. I don't know. I don't know what the deal is with that, but yeah, that was some weird stuff going on there.
Yeah. All right. So I'll, like I said, I don't think it's not exactly a great issue, but
I accept it. I accept it.
Of all the weirdness of this film, I had to pick something that was a little unique.
I accept it wholeheartedly, sir. I humbly accept your nomination. All right, well, cool. Well, then that brings us on to For Your Consideration. How about you go first, sir?
For your consideration, I think I'm going to have to agree with you about the special effects. I feel that I of all the things I can pick on in this movie, the one thing I cannot pick on is the effects. I mean, they kept everything pretty top-notch, and they did push the envelope in a lot of ways in that respect. I feel like some of I think Michael J. Fox playing his daughter was a little creepy, a little weird. But I mean, again, you had to hand it to them as far as the effects go. They didn't cheap out. So, I mean, not everything looked great, but they really tried to push the envelope a little bit. And again, even though I find that the whole movie is essentially a technical exercise, the technicals are pretty good. So I'll give it to that.
And I will gladly accept that, and I'm sure they would gladly accept that as well. I would also have pointed that out as well. For me, my for-year consideration, I honestly, this is going to sound funky. My favorite scene in this entire movie is the scene where Marty is chasing around Strickland because he thinks he has the book. And it's like just this quiet scene of him trying to get the book. There's no real sound or anything like that. And, at one point his hand gets stuck and he's just like quietly screaming and biting his hat and stuff like that. I love that scene. I think that's like my favorite directed scene in the entire movie.
Alrighty.
I know it's left field, but it's just, when I think of this movie, I always think of that scene like when Strickland just kind of casually kind of leans forward in his seat and it makes that sound and Marty reaches his hand up and he just kind of casually goes back. And it's just, I just felt like from a directing standpoint, it was just really, really well done because there was never confusion as to where everything was or what was going on or anything like that. And no words had to be spoken. I love when films do that. So there are absolutely positively greater things in this movie, but this is for your consideration. And frankly, I just love it.
Michael J. Fox, Christopher Lloyd, Michael J. Fox.
More like a couple of teenagers,
And Michael J. Fox.
Mom, is that you?
Steven Spielberg presents a Robert Zemeckis film, Back to the Future, Part 2. Coming November 22nd to theaters everywhere.
And thus ends our review of Back to the Future 2. But next week, we will not be doing Back to the Future 3. Ha-ha! You have to wait. You have to wait because next week, ladies and gentlemen, is Christmas. And as is our tradition, Joe and I will be reviewing a Christmas movie. Now, we had a lot of talks. We went through a bunch of different movies that we were trying to think, hey, what could we do for Christmas this year? We were thinking Elf. Joe, what was that other movie we were talking about besides Elf?
What? Yeah, what were we talking about? There was a few.
We were talking about a bunch, and when we focused in on one, we forgot about the rest.
Yeah.
But we were debating a bunch of different ones, and we had gotten to the point. It's like, we already did the Die Hards, and so. But nope. We actually are doing a new movie. That's right, a 2020 Christmas movie, and it certainly is a 2020 Christmas movie. Joe and I are going to go up against Fat Man with Mel Gibson and Walter Goggins.
There you go.
I am looking forward to reviewing this, to be honest with you.
I am too. I have a hunch that you and I'll be curious to see what we think about this one.
I will too, because I remember that the trailers were like, clever, but let's see if it holds up.
Can they pull it off?
Can they pull it off? Can they pull anything off? Oh, that's a terrible Seinfeld. I should be shot for that. My God. All right, dude. Excellent show, man. Excellent show. As always, you are just...
Thank you, my friend. Another good one. And I'm looking forward to next one. The holidays are coming, so should be a good one.
Indeed. You have yourself a great night, sir. Stay safe during Snowmageddon, all right?
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, and I will see you next week.
Thanks for listening to the Reviews Without Remorse podcast with Joe and Dave. Join us here every Thursday for a new episode. And be sure to check out the Reviews Without Remorse channel on YouTube for spoiler-free reviews of new releases. If you enjoyed this podcast, please consider becoming a patron. You can find our page on patreon.com. As little as $1 a month goes a long way. All clips in this podcast are used for commentary and critique, and is considered fair use. No copyright infringement is intended.
This line represents the normal flow of events. Here's where you met Lois, here's where you got married, and here's the present. And here's the night at the bar. Now, at some point during that evening, you did something that changed the course of your history, causing the timeline to skew off into an alternate tangent, where you're married to Molly Ringwald, Quagmire's married to Lois, and for some reason we have a chalkboard in the living room.
Well, what are we gonna do?
We gotta figure out what happened at this point in time. And I'll tell you another thing that worries me. You ever hear the theory that if you kill a butterfly in the past, it can drastically alter the present? Well, who knows what else we changed?
Tonight on The Tonight Show, movie star George Clooney.
Oh, he's good.
Comedian Dave Chappelle.
He's funny, like him.
And musician Harry Connick Jr.
Wow, what a show.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, here's Chevy.
Oh, God, Brian, we messed up bad. We messed up real bad.